a specific module we'll be touching upon each day. As you can see on the screen, there are certain modules with respect to certain days that we have to cover. So it's a very fixed agenda. Okay. Uh, so basically, this entire training is around web scraping. And firstly, guys, I mean, I like to give my credentials, why I am the right person to teach you what web scraping is. So I have around 15 years of experience, specifically in Python, in Java. I've started earlier as a Java developer, and then I had later shifted on to Python. And for the last couple of years, I have been doing web automation frameworks related projects, projects which involve web scraping, web crawling, many freelancing projects as well, many training assignments. And I have actively been involved into the data engineering, machine learning, AI side of things as well. Because since it's very closely related with Python, so these are the all domains that I have been currently working on. Also, I would say I have been, I mean, everyone of you might have been working with ChatGPT at some point in time, right? As in today. So I have been actively working on the generative AI space as well, which is an advancement of machine learning and deep learning, as we know. Okay. So that's all. I mean, in a nutshell, I can describe about myself. And let's switch on to the topics that we see on the screen. We basically start with the web fundamentals, okay, and we start with the GitHub introduction, okay. So web fundamentals is very important because this entire training is revolving around web scraping, okay. When we say web scraping, we are actually in a very simple terms trying to understand how do we get our data out of the web, out of a web portal, a web application. Okay, if you want to scrap some data, you want to extract some data, how do we do that? Okay, so for that we need to make ourselves aware about what actually the fundamentals of web are. So some of you, or many of you in fact, might have been working with programming languages, web front-end languages like HTML, JavaScript, right? CSS for styling, cascading, and all. So these are the web languages that have been used for designing a web application. Uh, and from the front end perspective, like what you see on that specific web page is mostly because of the HTML code that is written. It's mainly because of the CSS styling that has been done. Bootstrap has been implemented, and so on. And JavaScript has been implemented. So the entire look and feel of a specific web page is dependent primarily on these languages and React. In fact, we see a lot of different applications which uses React nowadays. So to understand them better is our primary objective in our first, for you can say three days, wherein today we'll be focusing on the e-commerce part. We'll be going through the concepts of e-commerce, introducing e-commerce. How do you test a specific web application? What will be the process of testing that web application? And when we talk about testing, as in, I am referring to manual testing right now. Okay, at the first day, as in today, we'll be touching upon the scope of manual testing. Like if you are given a specific project for testing a specific web application, how do you first define what will be the parameters on which you have to test it? What will be the key factors? Once you decide those parameters, now you can implement a manual testing approach or you can use an automation testing approach. Okay. And once you go into the automation testing side, I mean, there is no end absolutely. There are many frameworks and many libraries in Python that basically help you to perform these activities. Some of you might have worked or might have already worked upon Selenium, Playwright. So guys, just to know, for my convenience, how many of you have worked on or have some experience exposure to web application testing? Can you just mention in the comment, like you can mention it like comfortable or not comfortable. It will give me a fair enough idea like where my target audience stands, and it will give me a better perspective and understanding. So just mention in the chat window if you are comfortable, you know some bit of web automation testing, HTML, CSS, Python specifically. The main prerequisite of this course is Python, because as you see, I'm just scrolling down the agenda, and you see all of these modules, topics are related with Python specifically. So one of the prerequisites of this training is Python, that we need to know Python. At least, I mean, a little bit syntax of Python is mandatory. Okay. So uh, I'll basically come down to the module number 1, which we are discussing, which is the e-commerce introduction. And after that, we'll be discussing about Git and GitHub. Now, Git and GitHub is also very important because it's actually a source version control system. And when I say this fancy terms like source version control, it simply means that whatever code that you are writing at the end of the day, you alone would not be writing. You would have a team, let's say 5 people in the team. Each of one is performing some kind of code analysis, working on a same specific module. Then you might be writing certain pieces of the code which might overlap with each other possibly, or even though if they are distinct also, we need some kind of a solution that will keep the track of changes on this code. Okay, so Git and GitHub basically helps us to track those changes in the code, and it basically helps us to collaborate in a better way within the team. Okay, so it's a collaboration management tool. It's basically used for tracking the code in a seamless way, so as to avoid conflicts within your team itself when you write when you write a specific code, or when you are assigned to a specific project. And basically, it's a best practice to use in the software development life cycle, because in SDLC we go through various stages, and when the code when let's say you are in the development stage, you write code from the development perspective. But when it goes into the testing phase, maybe the testing team will report certain bugs, certain issues in the code, and then you need to again revise the code so that you can fix those bugs. So in that case, you need to have a proper management and proper solution. Git and GitHub basically, they help us to achieve or resolve those problems. Okay. All right. I can see certain comments over here, which basically indicates that many of you have worked on Python. Some of you have not worked on Python, but it's good to know. Okay. Selenium is someone has worked on Selenium as well. That's nice. Perfect, perfect. So, no worries, even if you have not worked on Python, or let's say, for example, not worked on automation side, which involves Selenium or Playwright. There is no need to worry, because this course is basically designed to go right from scratch. Okay, at the end of today's training, because today's training is more on focused on e-commerce introduction side. Okay, it's not more focused on Python. So today will be the only training wherein I'll bore you with with a little bit of theory over here. But in the rest of the sessions, we'll be basically focusing on hardcore Python coding. So I expect you to be very familiar with your lab environment. I'm optimistic that your lab environment is working, and please make sure it is working from tomorrow's session, so that you can go through whatever activities that we do during a specific training session, right? So even though if you are not familiar with Python or web scraping, no need to worry, because we'll be going through every bit, every piece of this module. From scratch, I'll be explaining you how an HTML looks like, what is JSON, what is basically extensible markup languages. In Python, I'll also explain you what kind of code you need to write so that you can scrape a specific web application. So we'll go with that basic level of understanding. All right. So having said that, I've covered until Git and GitHub introduction, and later, if I can highlight these specific topics, they are now basically technical sections, okay, which involves understanding a web application. Let's say we want to understand an HTML page, okay, so how to parse that HTML page to get the data out of that web page, okay. For that, we need to understand various other concepts like tags, attributes, selectors. Don't worry about this keywords as such. right now because we'll be focusing at a later session. Then we'll go into XPath and regular expressions. This is basically again one more methodology through which you can parse a specific web page. When I say parse a specific web page, it simply means that you are extracting the data out of that web page. Okay, let's say Amazon.com, Flipkart.com, Yatra.com, whatever.com you think you want to scrap that specific application, you basically can extract the information from that specific web page. But I'd like to give you a kind of a caution over here. Before scrapping any data, we should always be very mindful, like which application we are scrapping on. Not all applications supports web scrapping. When I say this, I actually mean it from a compliance perspective. Technically, it's possible. Technically, 100% is possible. You can scrape any data, any website, and you can get the data out of it. But from the compliance perspective, there are certain regulations, restrictions placed by the companies. They do not want their data to be scrapped, and for obvious reasons, because that data, I mean, anyone can use it for any reason, right? So really, they have certain regulations, and we should be mindful about it. And that's why often the point that we miss is reading the terms and conditions. And any applications, it's mentioned, but it's the bottom right or bottom left, and somewhere in a very small, you can say, font size. So we should always go through that terms and conditions and see if that web application website supports data scraping. Okay. Otherwise, what will happen is if you scrape enormous amounts of data, or if you do this scraping activity at a very regular interval, very frequently, then they would actually block your IP address. You won't be able to access that website. And this happens, I mean, let me tell you, this happens very frequently. If you just go ahead, write a script, and then start scraping websites with those scripts. So at the end, let's say after 2 or 3 attempts, your script will not work, and in fact you won't be able to access that specific application as well. So we have to be mindful about it. And what are the ways to circumvent these issues? I'll also walk you through. I'll also help you understand robot.txt file, what is the significance of that, and so on. So guys, the second module which I have highlighted on the screen, XPath and regular expressions, these are basically methodologies to do web scraping, one of the primary ways that you need to learn. The next module we will be going through is API calls and responses. This focuses on basically how you would deal with APIs. So APIs is basically, you can consider it as an interface, as a guide between your main application and your and you as a person. Let's say you visit Amazon.com. Once you visit Amazon.com, you get all the information displayed on the web page. So basically what you are trying to do is you are trying to get some information. So there is an get API call. There are different methods over here: get, post, push, delete. All of these methods we'll go through in detail. They basically, APIs are basically, you can understand, kind of interface between a user and a specific web application. User sends a request, they get the information back, they can modify a request, they can play around with the request, they can even send a delete action. So let's say, for example, certain resource will get deleted uh, because you add things in the cart, right? And then you delete things in the Amazon cart. So this is the same activity that we'll be working on when we'll be discussing API calls and responses. All right. Then later down, you can see Beautiful Soup from here onwards, which is day 7 on the right side. We are actually working on Python libraries to do data scraping on web applications. So Beautiful Soup is a Python library. Request is a Python library that we'll be basically using to do web scraping. And right from installation, how to use it, how to write the code, we'll be going through all of it in very detail. I've already talked about robots.txt and website traffic. So basically, if you see cell number 30, it basically talks about the ethical scripting practices, which we have already spoken about, like what we should be mindful about before scraping data from any web application, and how to do data scraping at a large scale, at an enterprise level, because there's a lot of difference when you do data scraping in your home project or in your dummy project. versus when you do data scraping at an enterprise level for some organization, because you have to create a system design. And when you talk about system design, you have to think about a lot many parameters related to capacity management of that system. What will be the number of processes that will be simultaneously executing, where the data will be stored, what will be the architecture of database storage, what will be the load balancing that should happen. Many parameters. I can go on and on, but more in this topic we'll see when it arrives. So this was about robots.txt and website traffic. From here onwards, since from now onwards, we'll be discussing how to do web scraping at an enterprise level. We'll be discussing about standard libraries, frameworks which support it. So Scrapy is one important library that's help us to perform web scraping in a very you can say systematic fashion. You can scale it, you can increase the number of crawlers, you can create spiders within it. And when I say crawlers and spiders, these are basically the entities without using which we'll be scraping the data, or we'll be crawling or navigating a web application. Okay. uh, then we'll be moving on to the JSON data extraction. Now JSON data is basically, I mean, any web page as we see as in today, or any tabular data that we know. Okay, backend, it is represented as a JSON format. So JSON is nothing but a key value pair kind of a format. Okay, and how to extract data from those specific JSON objects is one of a key thing that we should be learning during this specific web scraping. Later, we'll be going through website crawling and sessions, which means like we'll be going through the concepts of website crawling, and we'll be navigating through multiple pages. This is important because any web application as in today have multiple pages within it, nested pages, one page linking to another page. Okay, it's a very common practice. So our web crawler or our spider should be able to navigate to those pages, go from one page to another page as per the requirement, and then extract the data for us. So that should be a feature within our within our script, right? So hence we should learn about how to navigate through multiple web pages.
चला
I think there is someone speaking at the back end. Please, if possible, mute yourself. So then later we'll be going through proxy. Now, guys, proxy is it's a very important topic because scraping the data, learning how to scrape, I would say, is a straightforward way of doing things. I mean, you would learn it eventually, but how to circumvent those issues wherein, let's say, for example, you want to scrape a data from a specific application, but the application will immediately block you, right? Because they will understand that, okay, you are doing it through scripts, you are doing it through some kind of a bot. Okay, and they might scrape, they might basically block your script. So here we need to understand how to use proxies. So there are multiple third-party vendors which support proxy rotation, because using proxy rotation, you can use multiple proxies for different script execution. Let's say right now your script is executing and it is using proxy number 1, and later at the next very moment it is switching to another proxy, and so on. It's basically how we use VPN on our day-to-day basis. So basically we are using a private network, private tunneling to access a specific resource and object. Okay, proxy rotation basically use multiple IP addresses for performing your scrapping activity. We'll go through it in much detail later. And we'll be also focusing on PDF scrapping. PDF scrapping is just like if you have certain PDF files, multiple PDF files in a folder or SharePoint, wherever it is, you can basically scrap that data from that specific PDF. And it's a very normal, useful use case over here of how to do PDF scrapping through this. Okay. Later, so I'm going through each of the individual topic right now because this will give you what you should be expecting during the next 2-3 weeks. Okay, the agenda would be clear, and if you have any queries related to the topic, I'll visit the chat window one more time once I complete this understanding, and then we can switch to the actual scope of today's session. Then after PDF scrapping, we'll be going through scrapping dynamic content. This is so in all the web applications, in fact, 99% of the web application today have almost dynamic content. They have certain JavaScript which is embedded inside, or Ajax calls are present inside the web page, which actually means that content is being rendered runtime. When I talk about dynamic content, it actually means the content is being rendered runtime. The moment you open the web page, the content will be displayed dynamically to it when you navigate to that specific section. You might have seen certain applications, like if you scroll down, there is an endless scrolling, like there is no limit to the bottom of that page. It keeps on giving you results endlessly. So that's how dynamically the content is being rendered, and how to scrape those websites is again a challenge, but there are ways to circumvent and resolve those challenges as well, and that's what we'll be discussing in this specific section. um, Once you are scraping data at the first page itself, there would be certain logins, there would be certain credentials that you need to enter, and then you can enter into that specific web page. So this is again one problem. How to overcome this problem? You might use certain APIs that will send your credentials, authenticate it, authorize yourself, and then you would be able to enter into that portal and then perform the web scraping activities. Okay, this is one way of doing it. Sometimes you might also have some captcha restrictions which don't allow you to which basically try to authenticate you if you're not a bot. So how to circumvent those captcha restrictions as well, this is also we'll be looking into this specific section, because the content is locked down behind this login system. So we have to navigate through these specific issues and then access the desired data from our web application. Pagination and navigation. So this section is basically somewhat related to the earlier section that we were discussing, wherein we were discussing about navigation, right? So when I talk about pagination, it simply means like your web applications has multiple pages within it, and you basically are handling pagination and handling the scenarios of infinite scrolling, navigating from one page to the next page, and you have to build your script or the spider that you will be creating, that that can basically navigate through this multiple pages and extract the data out of it successfully. So it consider this as an advancement to the previous section that we have, okay, because there are multiple techniques to cover into this topics. And the best practices, last topic would be the best practices and anti-blocking techniques. This would majorly be the compliance part, like what you should be aware of, mindful about before performing any kind of web scraping or any kind of crawling. As I said, you should be very much well aware of the guidelines and the policies of that specific web application. And even if, let's say, for example, even if you have not read that web application's terms and conditions, but then still your script, your spider that you would be creating should not get like enormous amounts of data. I mean, at a very fast pace, like consecutively in every second, it's being extracting enormous amount of data. That would 100% restrict your spider, or they will block your IP address. So you should be mindful and considerate about these conditions. So we'll be checking on anti-blocking techniques over here, and we'll be implementing some concept which is called as user agent rotation. Now, user agent rotation is not a new concept. Even if in our browsers, when we access a specific web application behind the scenes, if you're using Chrome, it's using a Chrome agent. If you are using Firefox, it's using a Gecko agent. In IE, it's using its own native agent to access that specific. It's basically kind of an identity for the web application, like, okay, who is accessing this website? Okay, something like that you can understand at this point. And then we'll be building two projects specifically, which will be again revolving around web scraping and web crawling. All of the topics that we have discussed so far, libraries that we have used, will be including in this specific project. All right, so that's what you should be expecting out of this training. It would be 99%, I would say it would be a complete hands-on training. My only request is that your labs should be operational, since whatever code that I would be writing, I would really want you to replicate at your end so that you go through the actual challenge of writing the scripts, and you will face the issues by yourself, and then we would combinedly resolve it. Just let me know about those issues that you have during the end of the sessions, or you, even if you are doing it at your own spare time, we can talk about those issues in the next sessions. All right. I hope everyone is clear with this. I'll just go through the topic. Worked on RPA. Oh, that's nice. I mean, robotic process automation is one another important utility, which basically is used for web scraping purposes. Okay, it's a basically kind of an UI based automation framework. Okay, so you basically drag drop um your activities. So you might have worked with flow charts earlier, right? So you have a start, and then you basically create a one kind of a flow diagram, and basically on the conditions that you have, like there would be certain if conditions, and if a specific condition is true, then what activity to be performed. Everything could be done over here from the UI perspective. You can, I mean, there is not much requirement to code, but yes, definitely you can code as well. If there is a very complex requirement or a very specific use case, you can embed your code within it as well. So RPA is basically here. It's basically a robotic process automation, which helps you to design these workflows with the help of user elements, user interfaces. Um, there will be materials, yes. So for today's topic, since it's majorly theoretical one, the materials will be uploaded to GitHub. And for each topic that we'll be covering during the end, I'll be uploading that files, committing those files into my GitHub repository. The link will be shared to you. And I also would highly recommend, since tomorrow itself we have a session on Git and GitHub. So why we have included this session at the beginning only is, whatever code that you have written at your end, okay, I would recommend you all to create a GitHub account. Okay, if you don't know how to create a GitHub account, that's absolutely fine. We'll walk through in tomorrow's session. But if, let's say, you have a GitHub account, you please create a repository, a separate repository dedicated for this training, and try to upload each and every code uh, at the end of the session. Okay, so that way you can also keep a track of all the changes that we are doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Are we covering captcha? Yes, we are covering captcha, and it is specifically on the last few topics that we'll be covering over here. Okay, when we discuss about handling login and forms over here, that's when we'll be covering captcha. So see, and just to give you a side note, captcha is basically we can cover it through third party techniques. There are multiple vendors out there which also help you to navigate through captcha restrictions. Okay, that is one way of doing it. And we'll also see some of the normal traditional techniques that we used in Python web scraping to navigate or through bypass captcha. Okay, so yes, to answer your question, we'll be doing it at day 16, somewhere at day 16 and day 17. All right, I hope that's clear. So let's jump on to the actual content that we have. We'll be discussing about e-commerce introduction today. Let me, okay, for time being, I'll just close my cam because it's having some issues with the network. I can see the network being unstable little. So I'll just close that for a moment. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Yes. Okay. Can we get the recording? Yes, absolutely. Recording is, I think, already started, if I'm not wrong. We can, okay, it's not started, I guess. So does anyone have recording rights at their end?
Sir, the recording is started, sir.
Okay,
It's
it started. Okay,
Yep.
I was not able to see that at the banner. Oh yeah, no problem. If it is started, then definitely at for every session it would be there, and you will be given the recordings of each and every training.
Sure, sir. I'll be sharing the same with the participant.
Okay, thank you. All right, guys, let's get started. So what is e-commerce? We'll be going through basic concepts. We know that it's basically a trading platform, and we have seen so many web applications in today's age and world that belong to the e-commerce domain. Every day you might be visiting some of the other e-commerce web applications, Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra. Multiple e-commerce web applications are out there. Okay, so I mean, definitely there is no major introduction needed of what exactly e-commerce is, but yes, from the technical standpoint and from the perspective of this training, we try to understand why we are discussing about e-commerce. Okay, so and firstly, the major requirement of your project would be to scrape data from some e-commerce application. So you need to understand the topology of a specific e-commerce application. You need to understand what is the underlying architecture of it, because once you understand the actual architecture, once you understand the playground, then only you would be able to play, right? To understand a game, you need to know the rules of the game. So that's how it is. This first section is focusing on the rules of this specific game. So all of these things like e-commerce applications can be subdivided into multiple categories. Okay, one of the categories business to business, wherein there's one e-commerce application interacting with another e-commerce application. To give you an example, I'll again revert back to amazon.com, amazon.in India. So when you buy a specific product from Amazon website, okay, so this specific Amazon website, you are basically dealing with Amazon as in a primary person. Okay, understand that Amazon is your direct party which you are interacting with. You are buying a product from them, okay, and then the product is being delivered to you. It's a very straightforward scenario over here, right? So this should come into business to consumer. Okay, there is a business which is amazon.in, and then there is a consumer which is you and me over here. Okay, and this belongs to B2C kind of a model. Okay, so this kind of e-commerce platform is B2C. But think about how Amazon will get its all inventory from. Okay, so there would be multiple vendors, multiple sellers, multiple people who are developing, producing those products in manufacturing plants. Okay, how they would get their product distributed to Amazon? That's point number two. Because eventually, until and unless the product is not present with Amazon, they would not be able to sell it to us, right? So they should get their inventory from some specific vendors, stores, third-party retail agents, and so on, distributors and all. For these distributors and retail agents, there is a separate panel. Okay, there is a separate portal. Okay, and this portal allows them to upload their inventory onto the Amazon website, so that once they upload their data, once they upload their inventory, we are able to access it through the main Amazon.in website. So these third-party vendors, they have a separate portal. Let's call it as a vendor portal, and then they are able to access it, upload their inventory, and that's how the entire supply chain operation works in any e-commerce business. Now, in this second scenario, when when there is an interaction between the vendor and Amazon, okay, this is what we call B2B over here. B, business to business, wherein there is a business from, let's say, a third party vendor, and then there is a business which is Amazon that we spoke about earlier, and then there is a interaction between them. Okay, they are uploading their inventory, they are downloading some invoices, and entire features will be provided to them in that specific portal. This kind of framework is basically business to business. Okay, it's very, I hope, simple to understand, but if still you have any questions, queries, let me know. Perfect. So now if we go on to consumer, it simply means C2C, wherein I am as a consumer. You might have seen about this platform called as OLX, right? Or some other platforms which are on similar lines, okay? Wherein a consumer can interact directly with another consumer. If I have something to rent or sale, I can just create a posting over there, and another consumer similar to me would, if they would be interested in buying that specific product or getting that product for a specific period of time, then they could basically use that product. So some kind of that scenario wherein a consumer interacts directly with the consumer, okay, without an intermediate or third person in between, is C to C. So basically all the transactions, finance and everything is between that consumer and the another party, another consumer. Consumer to business is basically interaction between the consumer and then a business. So B2B, we have understood business to business. It's like between two business parties, which is, let's say, Amazon.com and let's say Flipkart.com, and they two are interacting with each other. So it becomes business to business. C2B is something like uh, we are interacting with Amazon.com. That will be consumer to business. Okay. Business to administration, let's say it's interacting with specific. So you can scroll down over here. I have in fact specifically mentioned all of these details over here. Okay, and you can see the part of e-commerce that basically performs transactions online between companies and public administration. When I say public administration, it can involve government authorities, regulatory bodies, and all of those government related web applications. When there is an interaction between the business with the government web applications, we can call it as B2A. And consumers to administration model is basically when the transactions, electronic transactions, are conducted between individuals and public administrations. So a very simple example of this is your income tax filing websites, okay, or the websites wherein you are enrolling for your Aadhaar card. Okay, so wherein a consumer is interacting with a public administration, a government web application to let's say perform certain activity, or let's say when you are trying to pay your bill, electricity bill, you might visit the MSCDCL website over there. So that is also something that we can call it as consumer to administration. So all the descriptions about these different types of e-commerce business is mentioned over here: B2B, B2C, C2C, C2B, B2A, and C2A. Why is this important? Because firstly, whenever we are scrapping any web application or website, we should try to understand what category this belongs to. Is it a business? Is it a consumer website? Is it an administrative website? Okay, that will help us to understand, okay, what should be the methodology through which we should be parsing. Because administration websites, definitely the data present over there, sometimes we are not allowed to scrape. Okay, mostly the business websites also, but certain businesses will allow the data scraping to happen. Let's say for example expedia.com, yatra.com, or any other travel website that you might think of. Okay, they basically allow the data scraping to happen. Why? Because they themselves get the data from any other third party aggregators, okay, through their APIs or web scraping mechanism, and this data is available, like it is necessary for you to make travel bookings and so on. So there is not much restrictions in getting data related to travel, uh, flight travels, or you can say certain IRCTC also. You can scrape there in the terms and conditions. You can read over there. So data scraping is allowed over there as well. But however, it's an administrative website, but there is an exception to this. So that's why it's important to go through the TNC of a specific web application. All right. And since we have already discussed about this, but I'd like to again reiterate this, like why e-commerce is important, and most of it is quite relevant to us in today's day and age. We can reach the global market, like we can basically try to get the information on the fly, right? For any information that we need, we can just visit that web application and we get the data ready for us. You can buy, sell multiple products. You can in fact create your own web application. Let's say if someone of you might have also worked with Shopify earlier, and it's basically an e-commerce platform wherein you can create your own shop, online shop, and then you can basically sell different things over there. So accessing these e-commerce applications is very simple these days, and you can get all of these features like buying and selling 24/7. All right. Uh, of course, the reach to the customers and reach to the target audience is improved. So now you have more eyeballs seeing your product, and eventually it will affect the if it affects the revenue as well that you would be getting once you open these specific web e-commerce portals. There's definitely no geographical limitations as well. All that you need to know is how to host a web application. You need to know some knowledge about domain hosting. Okay. You need to have some understanding about how e-commerce works. That's what we are right now discussing at this point. And then later you should be able to host your specific website or specific web application. These days, hosting a website is really not a big deal. I mean, certainly at one point in time, because today there is no code hosting web frameworks. Like you don't need to write any code over there. It's just simply you avail that service, you try to design your theme, create a web application, a web page, and your e-commerce platform is ready within minutes. Many platforms out there will give you this service. So hence the operational costs are low. When I talk about operational costs, it's because you are not bearing the expense of maintaining that website. You are not bearing the expense of administering the websites. Even from the security standpoint, you are not even worried about what would be this patching that you need to do on your specific web server, because all of this burden is being taken care by these third party vendors. Hostinger.com is one of the prominent vendors out there that assist you in setting up your own web application, websites, e-commerce businesses for you. So all of this overhead or burden related to administration, monitoring, maintenance, security is being taken care by these third parties. So you really need to use that service. You focus basically more on improvising your portfolio and your product and the inventory that you're gonna sell to the target audience. Your focus is where it needs to be, and the rest you need to uh, not worry about. So hence the operational costs are low, and you will get, of course, a better quality of service because you are leaving all of these burden to the experts, and they will handle it efficiently. As I said, no need to have physical company setup. Everything is online, everything is on cloud. When I talk about cloud, primarily we are aware of Azure, AWS, GCP, and many other cloud platforms. Not even this, Linode is one another cloud platform. So Hostinger, I already mentioned, they are one another service wherein you can create and build your robust web applications. So you can use any of the cloud platform which you think go through, like different features that those cloud platform provides. Because one of the most important requirement, what I feel, is site availability. Okay, your site should be available 24/7, because if your site is unavailable or if it has certain problems, hiccups, then of course the target audience and your customers would face those challenges, and eventually it will affect your revenue. So this is one important parameter. Other thing that I already mentioned about administration, monitoring, maintenance, and security, these comes by default with every cloud solutions. So of course that is to be understood, that most of them will provide you almost equivalent to a Six Sigma level of service. Definitely AWS and Azure, if you are using those for your AWS, Azure, and GCP, if you're using those for your web application solutions, then definitely you can expect highest quality of service from them. Uh, Easy to start and manage the business. Yes, it's a no-brainer, because we already spoke about how easy it is to create a specific e-commerce platform in today's day and age. And customers can easily select products from different providers without moving around physically. Of course, this is also quite convenient. One of the important points I would like to mention over here, since we discussed about the eighth point, customers can easily select the products. So there are many platforms out there, you might have already encountered a few of them, which acts as aggregators. No, I'm not sure if you have heard about this term aggregators, but it simply means, like, if you are taking an example of Amazon.com, Flipkart.com, and let's say Snapdeal.com. Let's say these are the three e-commerce platforms we have, and you want to buy a specific product from there, let's say a headphone. Now, instead of going through each of these specific e-commerce platforms individually, you basically go through an aggregator website which already does all the comparisons and give you the best deal out of this specific product from whatever e-commerce website it can be, but you will get a best pricing for that specific product. So such web applications do exist, and we can scrape data from these web applications as well, because they are also aggregating data through using API calls, and they are getting data from multiple web applications, summarizing it, perform aggregation on top of it, and giving you the best deal out of it. So mostly, yeah, from my experience, if you visit any of these aggregator websites, you would be able to scrap data from their websites as well, with very least amount of restrictions and regulations. And yes, they also fall in the category of e-commerce. Okay, I hope everyone is getting clear. Please feel free to write on the comment section if you have any kind of queries, concerns. If you are not able to understand a concept, please let me know. I'll definitely vouch out for that specific question and try to resolve it. So disadvantages of e-commerce, certainly one of the primary disadvantages I have already spoken about is security. Security is not even, I would say, a problem with e-commerce, but for any web application out there, even in your organization, those applications which are hosted internally, they need to be well audited from the security standpoint. Because see, in today's digital age, um, as as much as we can access the data, and it is convenient for us, but there are high chances that even our privacy, even our data confidentiality is at risk, right? So we have to be very mindful about what is the security considerations of specific web application. When I talk about from specifically from the perspective of e-commerce, let's take this one point over here. So let's say some e-commerce company, let's say ABC, they are expecting 1,000 customers per day on an average, or let's say 1,000 to 2,000 at least. But on a specific day, wherein let's say there's a big billion sale or something like that, they are expecting 5K customers. Now, these 5K customers are simultaneously trying to transact, trying to look out for their products. The load on the web application has increased. And when the load on the web application is increased, the website crashes. Most of the times, you might have encountered this issue. And all of this happens because one aspect of it is doing capacity management, right? So the administrators, or let's say the developers, which are responsible for maintaining this web application website, okay, they should always anticipate what will be the load that they should be expecting and do scaling as per their load requirements. When I talk about scaling, I am specifically referring to increasing the number of resources, let's say hardware resources or software resources, or basically increasing the compute resources so as to cater to their requests from the customers, so that the site doesn't goes down, so that the service is not unavailable. And this is called site availability. Okay, this is called as service availability. When we talk about Six Sigma, okay, we basically are trying to refer to a specific set of standards wherein you are trying to make your service available to 99.3 times 5 times 9 after the decimal point, and that much is the kind of availability that we want for our web applications to be. Having said that, not every time this is possible. There would be downtimes, and to anticipate those downtimes is also a part of your job. Like, okay, now when there is a downtime, there should be a backup server, or let's say there should be a backup resource that can come and cater to the requests of the specific users, so that even though site is down, the service to the users is not hindered, and you basically give them the best possible site availability. And this is basically one aspect. And we were talking about the security aspect. Security in terms of patching, vulnerability assessment is very important, because if you don't do that, then your site is at risk. Some kind of malicious content, or someone who is devising some kind of script, hackers and all, they might want the website down, and they might do some kind of injections, or which we call it possibly as SQL injections, or they can do some cross-site scripting attacks, denial of service attacks, and all of these different attacks are quite possible. There are a bunch of attacks. If you see the OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project, this is a set of standards that we follow for any web application. Um, this is a very important thing. In fact, I would like you to show you something. Uh, Let me go to Google. OWASP top 10. Okay, so OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project. As I said, it's a set of standards developed so that each of the web application out there should ideally follow these top 10 rules or top 10 principles. You can see where I try to zoom in a bit. Okay, so over here you see 2017 and here you see 2021. In 2017, these were the top 10 problems in web applications. Okay, in 2017. In 2021, these are the top 10 problems. And any web application out there needs to handle these problems so that their application, their portal becomes robust. When I talk about broken access controls, injection is something that I was speaking about in just a few seconds back. So basically, you can see if you don't try to adhere to these principles, there is a high chance that your web application may have some issues related to security. It will be vulnerable. It can have site availability issues. It can have data integrity problems and many more. There's no end, absolutely. To just give you a gist of what exactly these top 10 rules talk about, if you see the first one, broken access controls, it simply means, let's say, for example, I am a user accessing a web application, Flipkart, let's say, and I try to enter login through my credentials. The moment I log in, I am authorized, perfect. When I navigate from one page to another page, I am again asked for credentials. Now over here, I have already authenticated once, and that was less like 2 minutes back. And again, it's asking me for credentials. There is some problem with my access and authentication or authorization. Okay, it can be broken in a way, because if you log in, even in your applications within your organization, there should be single sign-on enabled or multi-factor authentication enabled. What it does, it basically helps you to navigate to your Active Directory, right? Once you are basically authenticated by your AD, on-prem AD, or it can be on the cloud. If you're using Azure, it can be Azure ADFS. Okay, so if you once you are authenticated by your Active Directory, you basically are able to access almost all the resources that you are entitled to within your organization. Okay, of course, there would be certain resources that you would not be able to access to because of role-based access controls. That's another topic, guys. I mean, we'll discuss it later, but then mostly once you are authenticated through single sign-on or authenticated through multi-factor authentication, whatever you are entitled to, you will be able to access those specific resources. But if you have broken access controls, you will face this challenge. You will have to authenticate every time, or you might not even access that specific resource. The same is true for in any e-commerce application. Then if you, I'll not go through each and every one of this, but the major ones I would like you to read through this topic. I'll just ping on the chat window as well, so that you would be able to go through it at later point in time. So this is the OWASP top 10 best practices. One of the important aspect is insecure design. Why I'm talking about insecure design? Because today there are many e-commerce platforms out there. Okay, and the way you build your e-commerce platform is very important. Most of the times it is built, let's say, on Shopify. If you're talking of about an example wherein you can get a custom e-commerce platform created in very less time and with very less efforts. All you need to think about is what you need in which page. If you are using that kind of service, then the design flaws could be very minimal in that case, because the third party is taking care of the design issues. Third party is taking care of the security issues. They are basically they would also basically take care of the site availability issues and so on. But if you are doing everything by yourself, let's say you are a hardcore developer working at the front end, you also know back end, you are a full stack developer, you have decided to create, even if you are trying to create a simple blogging website, then every point is what you have to take care of, right? That time you might face certain insecure design issues. When I talk about insecure design, let's take a very simple example again of the login credentials that we spoke earlier. And let's say you are entering the email ID, and then in the password field, the password needs to be entered, and wherein most of the web applications today are using masked password, right? Masked password, as in whenever you enter the password, it is masked. You don't see the actual password. You just see dot over there, right? Or asterisk over there. So this is a very simple design convention that we use while entering the credentials. But let's say accidentally, since you are developing your own applications, you don't do that, or you forget to do that. It is an accidental problem. So now again, any user who would be using that specific application, entering those credentials, the password would be relevant, and then it's a major security design flaw. And that's what will be covered in insecure design. I've just given you a very simple example, and it can be as complex as we cannot imagine also. So guys, I have given you the link. Go through this. This is a very important topic before you touch upon web scraping of any e-commerce application, specifically the injection part of it. You can see it is in the top 3. In fact, yeah, it's the third one. And when I say about injection, it actually means that you are trying to access the data, retrieve some kind of information from the data in an undesired way. When I talk about data, anything that you should click in your mind is you are trying to access the database of that specific web application. Okay, even though you are not authorized or authenticated to do that. So you might use some kind of injection mechanisms like SQL injection, or even, I mean, I'm not sure, but you might have used, like I said earlier, chat gpt. So in chat gpt, we basically use prompts over there to give us response. But in chat gpt also, there are security vulnerabilities, and that we call it as prompt injection. So these injections are which are SQL injections, cross-site scripting, prompt injections. They are major security issues for any web application or the service that we use, and we should be aware about these specific problems. Now coming back to the original topic that we are discussing. We're discussing about disadvantage of e-commerce. We discussed about security. We also spoke about system and data integrity, and also I had earlier spoke about scalability. Scalability I have spoken earlier while I was discussing these topics, and it simply means that you have to increase or decrease the number of resources in your e-commerce application based upon the load that you are experiencing, number of users trying to access that specific web application. There are two types of scaling over here. One is vertical scaling, another one is called horizontal scaling. When I talk about vertical scaling, it simply means that you are trying to scale the number of resources on top of this existing environment that you have. Let's say, for example, you have a web 1 server. Okay, it has 8 GB of RAM and 100 GB of hard disk drive, and now you need to scale up or scale down. So let's say if you are doing scale up, you might want to increase it to 16 GB of RAM and increase the hard disk drive storage to 250 GB. This is scale up. Scale down is exactly the reverse of it. You would like to reduce the number of resources on that specific machine. We are talking only about that specific machine. That's what vertical scaling is. As in, if I have to explain you just graphically, I'm talking about this specific server, and this on this specific server, you are doing either scale up or you are doing scale down. Scaling up means increasing the resources on the same server, and scaling down means reducing the same resource, let's say CPU, RAM, hard disk drive on the same server. But in horizontal scaling, what we do is, this is your server number one. Now you want to increase the number of resources. We create multiple servers, possibly the replica of servers over here. And each one of them would have, let's say, 4 GB of RAM, or 4 GB of RAM, and some hard disk drive storage. Okay. So just give me a moment, guys. Just give me a moment. I'll be back. Someone do. All right, so I'm back. Are we going to learn how to overcome with Cloudflare? I'll give you an overview of it. It would not be a very deep dive session of how exactly the service would be used. Yeah, but that would be covered in an overview part during these sessions. Okay. Yeah, so we were discussing about horizontal scaling, guys. So over here, what we are doing is we are increasing the number of resources. Okay. And you are basically creating you are basically creating replicas over here. Okay. So this can be server one, and this can be server two, and so on and so forth. So that's all about scaling, what I wanted to discuss. That's called system scalability. And I'll give you one important concept over here. It's quite relevant to our web scraping and web crawling, and it is very useful in industry, in any project that you do. So since I was talking about this horizontal scaling over here, if your load increases, then you might, if your load increases, basically, then you might want that all of these servers, or all of these servers, basically, they are up all the time, right? They should be up all the time, right? But this is at the very physical level. Like, you need to have server one, you need to have server two, then server three, and server four. But try to understand, will it not take a lot of cost? Will it not increase your resources? You need to manage also more, right? Because the number of servers are increasing, so you need that many amount of physical human resources as well to manage all of them. So everything is going up, everything is going up, right? But we all know there is a concept called as CI/CD. I mean, we might have heard about it, isn't it? Many of you might also be working as a CI/CD, or build and release as a DevOps engineers, and so on, right? So what we normally do in today's times is, instead of going through physical resources, we try to create something called as containers. Okay, so I'm very bad with my handwriting, but please try to understand. uh, Try to create something called as containers. So containers are basically instances. Let's say this is container C1. Okay, then there is container C2, C3, so on. There can be multiple instances of containers, and trust me, guys, these containers are very easy to create. If you know Docker, okay, then you would be very easily, it would be very easy for you to create these containers. And on top of these containers, you basically create an instance of your application. Okay, so right now, let's say there's an application A1 hosted on container. Sorry for this convention, but then let's say this is A3, and this is another application A2. Okay, and then there is one more application called as A1. Now you have three different applications hosted on three containers. Okay, and now you can also automate all of these containers using something called as Kubernetes. It's another engine that basically helps you to automate the containers administration. Let's say you want to shut down all the containers at once. You can do it with Kubernetes. You want to patch all of the containers at once. Do it with Kubernetes. You want to add some specific features in all of these containers at once. Do it with Kubernetes. It's a container management solution. And these containers are basically managed with the help of, as I said, Docker. Docker is one, consider it as a company, as a vendor, which basically helps you to create containers. And on top of these containers, you can create your, or you can host your applications. And why I spoke about containers, because we are talking about the concept called as scalability. Okay, in scalability, you want to either increase the resources or decrease the resources. And to do that, in today's times, we have containerization, and we use Docker for increasing or reducing the containers. And eventually, the resources that are utilized by the applications also get accordingly adjusted based on scalability. It eventually helps you to do better load balancing. And there are many, many advantages of Docker. I mean, it's a complete topic of its own, but then just to help you give a better understanding in terms of scalability, we spoke about this containerization technique. Are we aware of this? I mean, any questions so far? No questions. We'll move ahead. Uh, so guys, we'll also talk about some other e-commerce platform. Magento, Zenode, Wix. Wix is very popular. I mean, you might have also heard about Wix platform. There are many ads you might have seen for Wix, which is basically e-commerce platform, help you host, create your own e-commerce platform. I've not written Shopify over here, but yes, it is also one of the very popular e-commerce platforms out there. You can visit all of this. Just do a Google search. You will get to know a lot about these are the e-commerce platforms that host, and it will help you create your own e-commerce solutions on the fly. No code e-commerce platforms, I should say in this way. Okay, that means you don't need to write any code over there. Procedure of navigating e-commerce website is very, very important. Now, from here onwards, we are diving into the technical aspect of going through a specific web application, e-commerce specifically, and then trying to parse that specific e-commerce with respect to its component. One of the components of any e-commerce web application is homepage. Okay, you visit Amazon.com, you'll have a homepage. You visit Flipkart, you'll have a homepage. Everyone has a homepage. That's the first page that we often visit for any e-commerce. And once you are at the homepage, then you basically navigate to other pages. Like there can be products page, which is nothing but categories. Inside products, there can be appliances, electricals, TV, there can be books, there can be any other page related to any other item. So multiple category pages would be present over there. And eventually those categories belong to certain products. When we talk about, let's say, electrical appliances, inside electrical appliances, there would be fridge, TV, AC, multiple electrical appliances. Those would be individual product related pages. So this diagram over here, it will help you to give a fair understanding of about how a e-commerce web application should look like. Okay, so let's say tomorrow if I want to design a script which will scrape the data from a web application, so ideally where it should first go, ideally you can go to any of the pages. To be honest, you can go to the category page directly. If you have the URL of the category page, you can go to the product pages directly. You can go to directly create an account page also. But the important point to understand over here is to go to a create and edit account page, possibly you might need to authenticate first, right? So authentication will be a showstopper over here for your script. Until unless you authenticate, how would you be able to edit the account or create the edit that any items on that account, right? Basically, I'm talking about the cart over here that basically you populate once you add certain items or delete certain items. The shopping basket, sorry, not edit account. I'm talking about the shopping basket over here. So if you want to access the shopping basket, definitely you need to enter into your account and you have to log into your account. Okay. All right. So this diagram over here, it basically helps you to do understand this architecture and navigate through each and every page so that you design your scripts in an efficient manner and you know what needs to be, what would be your process of data scrapping? So home page will have certain non-e-commerce pages as well. These pages will definitely, we call it as like terms and conditions page, some pages related to restrictions, policy violations, pages related to compliance and regulations, like I mentioned. So these are non-e-commerce pages. Now let's say some certain e-commerce platforms, they also have certain commitments in their mission and vision statements, like providing certain commitments to the society, giving back to the society. So there should be certain blogs related to it, which are non-e-commerce pages, right? So these pages are also present over there. Then there are search results. If you see, based on the search results, you can directly navigate to the product page. You will have a shopping basket, as we know that, wherein you will add the items in your cart or remove the items in your cart. We'll have a checkout customer information page. There will be a shipping section. Now, specifically in these two sections, specifically at the checkout payment information over here, you would have integrations with third-party payment providers, like you might be, there would be third-party payment gateways, wherein you would basically do your swipe your card, or you do your UPI transactions and so on. Okay, so over here, this e-commerce needs to be integrated with the third-party payment gateway solution, which is an external service. And now, once you authenticate to the external service, you will get an OTP, and then you will make those payments accordingly. And then finally, it will redirect back to the invoice module within your e-commerce platform, and it will generate you the respective invoice for the transaction. So over here, this diagram over here, it is a very simple diagram to understand as per my assumption, but it will give you a lot of understanding about how your script should be designed. And any script will be basically designed on either of the modules over here. Some part I might have missed over here, let's say third-party payment gateway integration, or you can say sometimes what happens is, even if you are in the products page, okay, and in the product page, let's say the vendor has given you a link of that product, which basically describes the product in a better way. Let's say it can be a video, but that video is redirecting to another website of outside of Amazon. Okay, outside of Amazon. So now those integrations with third-party applications also happen, and they can happen at any stage over here. It can happen in the product page, it can happen in the shopping basket, or anywhere, like I said earlier, at the checkout page as well. Okay, so I hope these are clear. Any questions so far, guys? If you have any questions, as I say, please feel free to ask. Let's move ahead. And we'll be talking about specific components now. Okay, so first component, if you see over here, let's say you're visiting a e-commerce application. So it can be a home page, then search results page. Normally you will get a search box. Okay, so while you are testing an e-commerce application, you will always get a search box. Now in the search box, if you want to test that specific application, test in the terms, it means that you are provided a specific project, and in that project you want to open that specific you have provided a specific project, and that project basically needs you to test the specific web application, test all its functionality, all its components, how exactly they are behaving, what is their behavior specifically is very important, right? So you can do it over here. Just give me a moment, guys. I'll be back. There's someone at the door. Just give me a moment. Sorry, guys, I'm back. So I was saying about this search box, right? So this is one of the important component for any web application that you visit. You will have a search box over here, and then you will enter certain keywords over here. Sometimes you will have certain functionality issues within the search box if it's not properly implemented. Maybe once you enter the product, you are not getting the listings of the product over here, and so on. Many issues can happen over here. It's all that you have to test. Now here, manual testing is what I'm talking about. It's not automative testing. It's not with Selenium. It's not with any other automation frameworks, not with RPA, just simple manual testing. Okay. Um, as you see, oh yeah, what to test basically shows text suggestions for a range of products that the e-commerce site offers, and it will tell you the different ways to search. Sometimes you might have seen this thing, like you don't even enter the full product, but the auto completion enables you to give the description of the full product. Okay, so that kind of features, if it is implemented, are they working correctly? Are they robust enough? Or let's say if you type words very quickly for your product, if you type the entire word very quickly, will it able to do auto completion, or it giving you duplicate results? So you have to do such kind of testing, perform some performance testing, regression testing over here on these specific components. These are individual components of the e-commerce site that we are currently referring to. Okay. The second is like scrolling banners and images. So scrolling banners means like you open an e-commerce application and there is a banner at the top which suddenly appears out from nowhere. Okay. Now you have to cross that banner and you have to close that, and then basically I'm talking over here about the banners and X frames both. Okay, so you have to cross them and then you have to basically navigate to the site. So while crossing them, are you able to click them at one instance, or you need two or three clicks to cross them? Because these are one of the important issues that we normally face in web applications while testing those web applications, because these issues will be faced by the script also. Because the issues that you face manually, it's not like the script will not face the issues. When you design the script, when it will go to the web page, it will also pass through, it will also face that frame, it will also have to circumvent through those frame, it will have to cross that frame, and then it will be able to access your actual data. Okay, if you're using APIs, the challenges will be different over here. If you're using data scraping methods, then another set of challenges will be here. But over here, we are trying to understand the main problems that you might face once you visit a specific web application. The third one is targeted content. So targeted content basically means, let's say for example, if I scroll below somewhere, okay, this here is the diagram. So basically the kind of, let's say the read section, or let's say the bias section, or you can say specific content that you want to scrap the data from a specific page. Okay, that is of prime importance for your script, or even let's say that's the data that we need. Okay, so we need to focus and understand, out of like so much of content, so much information present on your web page, what is the exact content that you need to scrape the data from. Because it doesn't really make sense to get all the data. It really doesn't make sense to get all the information. So, am I audible, guys? Hello? Am I
Yes,
audible?
again. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I thought I got mute accidentally. So, we were talking about the targeted content over here. So, the content of our, I mean, the content that we need specifically to scrape. And what I was saying was that we really don't need to scrape all of the data, because eventually, if you scrape all of the data, where would you store it? The database needs to be big enough to have to store all of that kind of data. And really, if your requirement is not with the entire data, it doesn't make sense to store all of the data. You need to specify the content, specify the target for what exactly you need to scrape. So you need to make that decision beforehand, before even creating the script, what exactly you want to scrape from the website. Um, Sort order, I mean, this is a very simple diagram, but I'll give you a very prominent use case is you have certain drop downs in any e-commerce applications. Okay, these drop downs basically, or you have, let's say, pagination implemented at the end of the page, 1 2 3, there are multiple pages that you can navigate with. You have to click on those pages. Like there can be an arrow which will navigate you to the end of the page, or there can be a back arrow which can navigate you to the first part of the page. Okay, so these components are very important to test, because if these buttons are not clickable at the first go, even your script might face challenge to click on those buttons and navigate through the pages if you are using a framework like Selenium. Okay, because Selenium will also work at a UI level. Okay, they will also try to open a web page. You can work with Selenium as an headless browser also, that's not an issue. But if you are working with user interface, then in that case you need to make sure that your components are visible, they are clickable. So these drop down list, those page numbers that we were talking about earlier, they should be tested with respect to their with respect to their functionality. Okay, functionality and performance both. Because if you click a page and it doesn't open in the next 2 or 3 seconds, and it opens in the 15 seconds or after 20 seconds, then again, yeah, that latency will contribute. And when your script will run, it might face a timeout issue, because it will not wait for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. The moment it clicks, it would expect like, okay, within 5 seconds, 3 seconds, the next page should come up. But if it doesn't, you will get a timeout error over there. Or you will find simply you will find that the resource is not available, or the resource is not visible, or so on. These errors is what you will be facing. Perfect. So now you need to check for these components. If you are trying to compare products on an e-commerce application, then the most important information that you would like to scrape is the prices, right? Because you want to do some kind of a comparative study between product A and product B. And when you are trying to do this comparative study, you will scrape those prices. You will be basically trying to scrape and store those prices in the database that we spoke earlier. And over here, I would also like to make a very important point: which kind of database you should be selecting for storing your data for web applications. Okay, ideally, I mean, there's no hard and fast rule. Okay, like you should use a SQL database, or you should use a relational database, or a known relational database. There is no hard and fast rule. But based on the type of data that you would get from e-commerce applications, okay, you would ideally use a relational database like SQL, wherein you primarily know what kind of data you would be expecting. Let's say, for example, I'm trying to scrape data from this page wherein there are multiple TVs along with the discount that they are offering, along with the prices that they have and their ratings. So these are the parameters on which I need to scrape the data from. I already know beforehand that, okay, if I'm talking about the name of the television, it will be a text data type. If I'm talking about the price of the television, it would be a numeric data type or a float data type. If I'm talking about the ratings, then those ratings will be of the float data type. Let's say it will be rating 3.5 out of 5, or rating of 2 out of 5, or rating of 4 out of 5. It will be numeric or it will be float. So when you know what data you would be getting beforehand, then it's always advisable that you use a kind of a schema which is wherein the data types are already defined, which means like in SQL, you will already create a table. In that table, you will already create columns. That columns will have a predefined data type. Like there would be a name column which will have in text values. There will be a price column that will have integer values, right? There will be a reviews column that will have float values. So all of this will be pre-decided. And then when you are scrapping the data, even though your data will have some kind of inconsistencies and anomalies, you can do data pre-processing within the script itself and eventually store that data back into your relational database. And choice of relation database can be any: SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL. You can use any database of your choice. However, this is scenario number one. However, another scenario could be like you are getting a data from an IoT platform. Now we are not talking about e-commerce over here. We are talking about an IoT platform. IoT. Let's take an example of Okay, all of our appliances which are present, which we are using in our homes, let's say of a washing machine or AC these days, right? All of them basically can now be regulated and monitored through phone because we have applications in our phone, right? Now if I'm trying to scrape a specific application on phone, now guys, scraping an application on phone versus scraping an application on a website, these are two different things. Okay, so I'm talking about the second case. When you're trying to scrape applications on the phone, you might use tools like Appium over here. Okay, which basically use for scraping applications, Android applications or iOS applications on phones. Okay, so when you are getting that kind of data, which is real-time data, data being generated on runtime, you might not know what would be the data type that you are expecting, right? When you are unsure about the data type or the data that you would be getting, then in that case, non-relational databases, NoSQL databases are preferable because they do not have any restrictions of schema. You can store any kind of data, any type of data within such kind of databases, and hence they are preferable. You can use MongoDB, for instance, which is a good, uh, which is a good solution for holding non-relational data in the form of key value pair. Okay, so we have discussed a lot about this. We have not even touched about compare. We have touched about the compare products, but we have also discussed about the database requirements for your scraping projects. And I hope now you are able to understand what and which database to use in which scenarios. Okay, what to test? Now, as I said, as we were discussing earlier, there are multiple parameters that you need to test your web application. It can be the parameters from the functionality point, like clicking of the buttons, drop down menus, search boxes, scrolling up and down on your web page, doing page navigation. These are from the functionality standpoint. Another parameter could be from the performance standpoint. What you have to test from the performance standpoint. Performance standpoint means how much load time is being taken by your web page. How much is the latency that you are observing moving from one page to another page. Okay, is there any page which is showing you incomplete content? By the term incomplete content, I simply mean that the web page is not able to show you all the resources present or expected on that page, right? Some resources are present, some resources are absent. Okay, and it's giving you an incomplete picture. That also will come into the performance issue aspect. Okay, yes, of course, you'll get the presentation which will be displayed. Everything will be uploaded on the GitHub. I'll be giving you my GitHub link, and you will be able to access all of the content from there, including code and presentations. Yeah, so coming back to the point, uh, we have to test the application from multiple perspectives. One is functionality, one is performance, and another is scalability. We have already discussed about scalability, but since you are the developers, you are the administrators, right, who will be managing, maintaining, developing those web applications. So in fact, you have to think about what happens if the load on the website increases. Is it capable enough to hold or cater to heavy traffic? Is load balancing properly uh, implemented within your web application? Is it compliant with respect to high availability? High availability simply means that your application is available, your service is available at a most number of times, right? Even if your, let's say, server goes down, another server is as a backup server, and it's basically catering to your users' requests. So these are the 3 points. Then the fourth point I said, what to test. Inside all of this will come over here within what to test. Okay, so if you, let's say your application is having certain security flaws, so certain security issues. Let's say your application is not hosted on secured channel, so it will be HTTP instead of HTTPS, and you should be mindful of accessing such sites. On companies, within the companies it's fine, but if you are accessing any other external site out on the web which is only HTTP working on only HTTP protocol, then you should be very cautious while accessing those sites because they are not being securely encrypted and authenticated. So So you should test against the security parameter as well. Now, if you do a comparative study, like within an e-commerce application, if you are testing that specific e-commerce application, then you can go and check whether the buttons of the image, buttons of that page are working correctly or not. Same thing that I have explained you in the last 2 or 3 minutes is the same thing. Then there would be a ratings and reviews page over here. The ratings and reviews page basically helps you to understand, okay, what is the product ratings and how successful the product is within the audience. And I would, based out of my personal experience, I would tell you that there is a lot of requirement to scrape the data from reviews, because you eventually want the first requirement is always to get the price and give a comparative understanding. Okay, what is the price of the product and how it is well placed as compared to another product. That's the first requirement, mostly of any web scraping project of an e-commerce application. But the second requirement is to get the review of that specific product, because you want to understand the sentiment of the people for that product, which will help the decision makers to make the right decision whether to enhance this product with new features or scrape that specific product because it's not popular among the masses. So getting the reviews and the ratings is one another important aspect, and how to do that is one another topic of its own, which we'll be discussing practically when we'll be implementing it through scripts. We'll be specifically parsing the Amazon.com website, and we'll be getting data out of it. You will get to see once we'll arrive at that specific topic. Then once you get the data out of that, it's not easy to visualize or see data in numbers, right? You would also like to have some kind of dashboards, some kind of reports that would really make sense. And even, let's say, for people who are technical or non-technical, visualization in any which way is more helpful than just numbers out on screen, right? So you can create those visualization reports if you have knowledge of external tools outside. I'm talking outside the scope of scrapping now. But if you have knowledge of other tools like Power BI or Tableau, which basically deals with data visualization and all, you can really make insightful reports based on the data that you have scraped through your scripts. Let's talk about shopping cart options. In the shopping cart, there is multiple features, which is like checkout button, coupon code, recommended products, continue shopping. There would be some options related to adding, deletion of the items in the cart, right? There would be multiple. There would not be an option, but there would be page within the shopping cart itself, wherein it would show you the discounts which are applied. Okay, and you also need to check whether the calculation of the discounts, I mean, from the perspective of testing and from the perspective of development of that specific web application, you also need to check whether the discounts that are being provided after applying the coupon code is actually correct, or actually it's wrong, or it is giving you some incorrect results. These are very minute things that you need to make that you need to take care of. Okay, because since we are a user or a customer of that product, we might not even pay attention to it, but since we are developers and testers and QA engineers, we really need to make sure that each and every feature which is displayed on that specific web page adheres to the best practice, and they are not just displaying the data for the sake of displaying, but they are actually functioning it in the right way. Then talking about the sign in or guest checkout. So these are just like when you enter a web application, you basically are asked for credentials. You are basically asked for authentication. Sometimes the authentication is based on email ID and password. Sometimes it's if integrated with your sign in accounts on your emails like Google, like Gmail basically, and you basically log in through your Gmail credentials. You have to test all of that, and your script also need to be robust against all of these authentication and authorization mechanisms, because your script should also be able to click on sign in button and then enter into the portal and then get the data out of it. If you are a new customer, how do you handle the sign up activities? This is also your script should take care of. We are right now going through all of these components. Reason being, since we are testing it manually, your script would also do it the same way. there would absolutely be no difference. Whatever you define in your script, the script will perform in a similar way. It will navigate from one page to another page and perform all of these operations that we as an user do it manually. Okay. What will be the challenges in e-commerce website testing? Firstly, as rightly said over here, domain knowledge is very important, because if you are aware of that specific domain that you are testing the application from, it really helps your use case. You also knows the things that might possibly be missed out by any other person who doesn't have the domain knowledge. And this is something which is very intrinsic, which basically comes by default. If you know the playground and the rules of the game beforehand, it always helps you to fare well in that specific domain. So domain knowledge of that is very important. If you are trying to scrape the data from retail e-commerce, that's absolutely fine. If you are trying to scrape data from banking, you should be aware of banking and investment banking. Basically, banking finance sector is something you need to be relevant about. I'll give you a very good use case over here. One of the projects in my GitHub also replicates the same. Basically, it's a trading bot algorithm for stock market trading. It tries to scrape data from certain sites related to certain stocks, tries to get the indicator values, and then tries to perform certain technical analysis, and then tries to predict the price of the stock. Machine learning is also involved in it. And basically that's overall the theme of that project. But what I'm trying to tell you is one aspect of that entire project is web scraping. And over there you basically try to scrape the data from that site. Now, not every website, and since it's a banking site, will allow you to scrape the data from here. You would help make use of uh, API calls. You will try to make use of not data scraping, but preferably API calls, because you will basically ask for authentication from that specific web application. They will give you a token, and then based on that token and API keys, you will be able to scrap the data from that specific application. So not always web scraping helps. Like, it's not like you will go to a web page and get the data out directly and you will start working on it. But sometimes you have to make use of alternative methods. Like I said over here, making calls via API, making use of tools like Postman and all to craft your API calls to get the data. And once you get the data, it becomes easier for you to perform any kind of add-on functionality on that specific data. So you also have to think about the browser compatibility. Okay, the browser from which you are trying to test these applications, it should be compatible enough with that application, because you might have seen personally also when you are visiting any banking site, it specifically mentions that it needs Chrome version 86 or higher, or it needs IE version something or higher than something, IE, or let's say Edge these days, in fact. So browser compatibility is very important. If your browser is not compatible, definitely your script will face issues while it's trying to launch that application on that browser. Over here also, I would like to highlight certain tools, third-party integrations that you can integrate with your browser, um, which we will use definitely in our use cases also, which helps you to identify specific elements. Let's say, for example, I want to identify a button element that I want to click. So there should be certain selector for that button, in that case, an identifier for that button. So how do you identify it? Either you go to the source code of that page and do it manually, or you use third-party tools and techniques to do it. One of the techniques is Selectors Hub. Everyone might have used at some point in time if they are working in the testing domain. Selectors Hub is a very good integration that you can include it in your Chrome IE browsers, which will eventually help you to identify web elements on your web page, and we can basically interact with those web elements. So that's all. That's what we be needing in terms of browser compatibility and application testing. Then performance testing, I've already spoke much about this specific use case. It basically involves how to handle load, um, or how to handle the number of user requests for your specific web application. It also talks about load balancing from the perspective of infrastructure. Like, you need to have multiple servers, or you need to have single server with multiple compute resources on it. So if you remember, I was earlier speaking about horizontal and vertical scaling. That's what it refers over here. Okay. Are we also covering web scraping via Citrix environment? No, we are not covering it via Citrix environment. I think you over here you are referring to like the application is hosted on Citrix or something, and we are trying to access that application on that Citrix platform. Sorry, I have got muted
Yes.
accidentally. Okay, so no, actually, I mean, we are not doing it that way. I mean, the application that we are trying to scrape is not in the Citrix environment. It's out on the web. It's out on the internet, and we are trying to scrape those applications. If you have any specific requirement of scraping web applications on Citrix, then you can let us know. That could be another use case of its own, and we'll try to think about it. Okay, how do we cover it? Because right now the infrastructure that was provided to us doesn't have Citrix VMs or Citrix machines wherein we can scrape the applications from. But any use case which is very specific that is needed for your project requirements, and just let the coordinators know about it, and if possible try to include it. Okay. All right. I hope that answers your question. And let's okay, so that's all about the end of this e-commerce introduction that we had. uh, One important thing I would like you to do is, just for beginning purpose, let me move this Zoom banner down, and for the practice perspective, okay, I'll not give you directly an e-commerce application directly. I mean, you can go and touch down upon Amazon or Flipkart or any e-commerce application of your choice and try to perform this kind of manual analysis that we did, that we have studied in this specific document. Like you can create a document of your own, and then with respect to the points, right from starting from here, right from this architecture. Okay, let's say you are on the home page, and on the home page now, what are the what are the points that you need to check? Okay, if you are on the category pages, what are the different elements you will be checking? If you are at the checkout page, then what? Because every page will have its own elements and will have its own functionality, and then you can create a kind of a model over here. When I say model, it means just a simple model on your Word document with respect to that specific web application. Then you can write, okay, you are at the home page, and these are the points that you will be checking and how you will be checking. That's what is expected over here out of this specific activity. So you can either take any e-commerce application of your choice, or I'll give you a very, very simple application, which is, you might have also seen this if you have started with web scraping and crawling. It's just a scraping website. It is meant to be scraped, okay, for beginners, for people who have just started doing web scraping. This site is normally referred because it will give you a lot of idea over here how and what to scrape. Like it has an all products page over here, and it has a categories page over here. You can see books, and in that there are multiple categories over here. Okay, even if I go back to the home, let me go here. Yes, so over here you can also scroll down, and so scroll down in itself is a functionality. So certain websites have scrolling which is infinite, but this website is not in that category. Okay, so if you have infinite scrolling, that means that site is dynamically rendered, the content is being displayed dynamically, and then you can click on next. Here the pagination is provided. You can click on next and see all the other topics. If you click on specific book over here, you can see this is the data, this is the information that you would be scraping, this is the kind of title you are expecting. In fact, you can get or download images as well. Like if you see over here, I have the option to save the image or copy the image. The same thing can be done with the help of your Python scripts. in web scraping. But where would you store those images? That would be a challenge. Not definitely not in SQL, right? So now here you have to think from the perspective of design. What would be now? This is a question to you. Just think about it. I would really love to hear some answers from your side. Like if you have the requirement to store videos, images, audio information from your scrape data, what would be the database that you would be storing from? Of even if it's not a database, what would be the approach that you would be using to store such kind of information? Okay, for text data, definitely you can use SQL, NoSQL, that's not a problem. So over here, you can see the multiple things to that you can scrape data from. Now here there is a tabular column over here. Okay, now tables are being extracted a little different as compared to normal text. If you try to create a Python script wherein you will get a table, so you need to basically parse that specific table and get the information out of it. It's a little different as compared to the normal text. We'll see more on this later, but yes, this can be one of your point. This can be one of your use case that you would write in your document that, okay, there's a product information table, and then you need to get the data specifically from the table. I mean, it would be very easier. Let's say, for example, if I give you a requirement over here to get the data, to get the price of this product, would it be easier to get the price from here, or would it be easier to get the price directly from that table? I mean, that's an interesting question. You should also pay very minute detailed attention to this point, like which activity is easier and which activity be easier for the script, or will be easier to implement in the script, or using which activity your script will not perform badly. I mean, it should be performance optimized as well, right? Your script should be efficient enough. It should retrieve the data immediately. It should be performance optimum. You should be able to do some kind of multitasking, multi-threading also within the script. So all of these features are very important when you design a specific solution. So would it be easier to get data from table, or would it be easier to get data individually from here? So of course, I think you might have started thinking about it. So you can create that specific document and mention all of these details. These would be the use cases. Okay, so you are mentioning it individually, it would be easier. Okay, so how about I'll give you one more scenario over here. Let's say tomorrow, the way this element is being displayed over here, the let me do one thing. I go to the inspect of it. Okay, I'm doing an inspection of this web page. Okay, when I'm doing the inspection of this web page, you can see the price over here. If I can zoom in a bit, which would be helpful to everyone, you can see the price over here mentioned, 37 euros, and this is mentioned inside the paragraph tag inside your HTML page. Let's say tomorrow, if the developer decides to change this from paragraph tag to, let's say, different H1 tag. Let's say it's showing it as an header. Okay, then the script that you might have created, which basically refers to this paragraph tag, and inside which it looks out for the price color, in turn it looks out for the value where it might fail because the implementation at the backend has failed. Okay, so think about those lines as well. Like your script needs to be robust enough so that it should meet the maximum cases. It should see no script can meet 100% of the cases, ideally in a very real scenario, but definitely it should meet most of the cases so that it should pass if even if there is certain implementation level changes in your design. Okay. Okay. Tabular guys are saying tabular as well. So I would definitely love to know why tabular and why individually. So you can basically create that kind of document that I'm trying to talk about. I mean, you can work on it today, okay, for this specific application, but you can choose any application of your choice. It's not like you have to choose books to scrape. You want Amazon, you go with Amazon, but try to do such kind of detailed analysis with respect to individual pages. And how you will get in those individual pages, you will basically go and refer this framework that we spoke about earlier. This one, there should be a home page. Try to analyze the home page. There should be a search results. There should be checkout. There should be products page. With respect to this specific web application website, it's a very simple website. So you will have only 4 to 5 pages. But yes, there are many things to analyze over here. One another thing which I can see over here and I'm not sure if someone has noticed about this is, let me go to the next page and see if that is same. Okay. Okay. So one other thing that I'm trying to see over here is, if you navigate from one page, let's say, for example, I come back to the previous page, which is page 1 of 50, 1 of 20. Okay. So you are at page 1.html, isn't it? You are at page 1.html. This is the complete URL. Now, if I remove this and directly come back to the home page, I'm not going to the, you can say any other, I'm not adding any other URL after that. If I go to the home page over here, it's again giving me 1 of 20, right? And if I specifically move to the next page, which is this one, then you see page 2.html being added to the original URL, books2script.com. So think about this in this way. When your script will be designed, okay, if you directly need to navigate to the third page itself, okay, so all that you have to do is write page 3.html. If you want to navigate to the 15th page, page 15.html, that should be the target URL that your script should be pointing to. Okay, so the URL address keeps on changing with respect to the pages, but this is not the same in all e-commerce application. Try with amazon.com, amazon.in. Okay, they will not have page 2, page 1, page 3 possibly. They will have page 2 or page 3 somewhere embedded into a long length of string, and you have to figure out what exactly is getting changed in that URL. I hope you're getting my point. If that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are at the end of the sessions, and that's what we are basically discussing about. Okay. All right. So now what we are trying to say is, just give me a moment. I'll walk you through amazon.in and show you what exactly I mean. Okay. So this is your amazon.in, and let's say you are going to this. Okay, this is the page over here. Now I'm talking about after this, after amazon.in, this is a thing which is dynamically rendered. Okay, now if you go to any other product other than this, let me go back to again amazon.in. Okay, I check on appliances, TVs. These are the TVs over here, correct? And if you scroll to the last page, last end of the page, you can see this pagination implemented over here. Now this is the target URL. I mean the home page. Consider this as your home page. Now, if you move to the second page over here, you see something got appended. And here, if you see page 2 is specifically referred over here. Page 2 and, which means it's concatenating with the rest of the parameters over here, which, and over here at the end, there is SR page underscore 2. When you move to the third page, these are the parameters that will get changed. SR page underscore 2 possibly, and this page equals to 2. This should be the parameters that should be changing over here. Okay, so if you scroll to the bottom of the page, so you see page and page equals to 3 gets changed, and over here SR underscore page underscore 3 gets changed. Likewise, you can see, you can try it out with other stuff as well, page underscore 4, and mostly the middle part should remain almost the same, mostly, but otherwise you can check this part as well. But otherwise this page 4, page equals to 4, or SR underscore page underscore 4 will get changed if you move from one page to another page. And that's how your script would also navigate. So you have to tell your script what will be the variable component inside that string and what will be the fixed component. So inside the variable, you can basically run a loop from 1 to, let's say, 10, and it will basically try to navigate through all those 10 pages. All right, so I would really expect you guys to create some kind of like document and do such detailed analysis. Like specifically on Amazon website, you can see a lot of check boxes over here at the left side that you can check and test. This is the reviews part. Now you can check for the customer reviews, like if you want only those applications which are 5 star or four, more than 4 star, to display only those applications or those results on your in your search results query. All right. This is one important thing over here which I see on Amazon. Like this is a live chat feature, and this might actually give you some issues. Like if you are trying to script this specific application over here, so your script should go behind and click on this specific application, uh, and this view might get hindered because of this frame over here. So how to close this is an important thing, or how to scroll down or scroll up. That's what we will be discussing when we will be reviewing the Selenium section. So guys, in entirety, if I have to summarize, this entire course for the next 2-3 weeks will be focusing primarily on Python, to start with Python basics. Then we'll start with scraping the websites with Python libraries like Beautiful Soup and requests. Then we'll be scraping the web applications using Python Scrapy framework, which is used in industries and enterprise projects. Then we'll be discussing about Selenium, which is actually a web automation testing framework, but it can be used for scraping activity also. And finally, once we are done with all of this topics, we would be implementing certain use cases and certain projects. Like 2 projects we have decided we'll be implementing end to end for a web scraping use case. All right. With that said, I think we are good enough and almost reached our time. I would like you to have any questions. Please feel free to uh, post it in your chat window, and I'll try to resolve as much as I can. If I have answers today, I'll give the answers today. If I sometimes don't have answers at that very specific moment, I'll request you to provide me some time to get back with those details. So always, and I would really want the sessions to be very interactive. If let's say tomorrow, once we'll be doing hands-on oriented, even if you have the slightest doubt, please mention it in the chat window, and make sure your labs are operational. Over to you guys. Any topic, any point of concern, questions? I have switched on my cam so that while screen sharing, normally what happens is the network and the bandwidth have certain issues, fluctuations. So I really didn't want that to happen during the session. So where can we get lab access? Aman would be able to guide you on that. So they would be coordinating with you.
Yeah.
And
I have. Yeah, sorry for interrupting, sir.
Mhm.
So for lab access, I have just dropped a text in the chat box requesting all of you to kindly please copy and paste it to somewhere in a document, and please drop an email. So
Okay,
there's one question for you, Ankur, sir.
yes.
Is it-
So the GitHub repository is public, and for today's content, I'll be sharing it over here. Right now, I've not created a separate repository for this training. I'll be creating it today, but you can check. Let me just go through my Git repo. Okay, so say here somewhere you'll be able to find my repositories over here. Okay, and I'll create a separate repository. I hope my screen is shared, right? I think I have not closed sharing. So here you would be able to see some kind of repository marking with today's date, and it would be related to Python web scraping. I'll be creating it over here. I'll be sending it to Aman. Aman, you can then distribute it to the audience, and you would be able to see the Word document that we have discussed today. Along with that, every day's coding and everything, you would be able to download it from this specific repository. I also encourage you to create your own Git repository. If you have not created your Git repository, wait for tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we'll be focusing on Git and GitHub, and we'll be creating our own GitHub repositories, and from then onwards you can start uploading your daily work over there.
Thank you, sir. So Ankur, sir, now just the assignment part is pending. Can you please
That's
share?
all shared. That's already shared. I've already
Okay,
given them
great.
an understanding of the Word document that they have to create, because the topics that we have covered today, this assignment or the use case is relevant to what we have discussed so far. So you can go to either of your e-commerce web application website of your choice, or you can select the application that I have provided you, which is bookstoscript.com. Okay, you can. I'll just mention it in the chat window. So either you can create a model for this specific web application, and this model should be listing all of the factors that we have discussed in this Word document, right from, let's say, homepage. So what you will be analyzing in the homepage and how you will do that from the manual testing perspective. I'm not expecting from programming point of view, but let's say you are analyzing a pagination. Then from pagination, what is your expectation, how it should navigate from one page to another page, or how it should directly go to the second page, what would be the parameters that might get changed in the URL, and so on. This is what the expectation is. Likewise, you can check for any other thing, let's say product page, category page, what are the different parameters. You can refer to these pointers over here, which is provided in the documents below, which is like how do you scroll, how do you search, how do you test a search box, and so on. So these parameters would be helpful to you to create that kind of document. And it's an extensive exercise, guys. I mean, if you